Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome, all of you, to the First Unitarian Church of Pittsburgh. It is Sunday, November 6th of 2022. I am Reverend Dr. Kate Walker, and I am so honored to serve as the minister of this beloved community. You are all welcome here. If you are here in person, thank you for your precious presence and your decision to roll out of bed with your extra hour of sleep and be here. And if you are online, you are welcome here now or in the future at some point if you are watching this recorded service. We are Unitarian Universalists, one people with many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. We are all growing and learning. We are all loved. Just as you are welcome here. We are working for justice wherever the heavy weight of oppression has woven into the fabric of life. And if this is your very first time with us, either in person here or on YouTube, delightful to have you, and a special extension of warm gratitude for your presence with us. And if you have not already done so, please be in touch with our welcome table, which is right out in the foyer of our building, or you can go to our website at First Unitarian Church of Pittsburgh, just Google it, and you'll see on that main page down at the bottom, there is a form to start receiving our newsletter. There's some also information about visitors and membership, and we would just love to be in touch with each and every one of you. And if you are interested in meeting people after service, we have a social hour. There is a small one on Zoom. And if you would like to join, just send an email to First Unitarian Pittsburgh, all one word, @gmail.com, and you'll get a link for the Zoom meeting. And if you're here in person, please stick around for a special, very special and wonderful celebration of social hour and a child dedication today. This is all put on by Naomi and her family. And she is the host for this afternoon's social hour. And hopefully the rain will cooperate and hold off until we need it to come. On behalf of all of the staff and the volunteers who make this worship happen, I offer our gratitude for your presence, your goodwill, your laughter, and most of all, your generosity of spirit. I also invite you after the service, if you would like to be inspired with some incredible colors. This painting on my right is indicative of what is to welcome you in our basement in the Undercroft today. We have a brand new art show, and it is really spectacular. So take a dip downstairs if you get a chance. I invite you to take a deep breath and arrive, whether you're at home or here in the sanctuary, arrive in body and spirit. Be present with one another. Let go of whatever it took to get here, the confusion our bodies are experiencing about what time is it? And just be here with one another. Picture yourself connected to people of faith in this city, in this country, and around the world. Find yourself being loved. Find yourself being welcomed. We turn to our chalice lighting, the heart and symbol of our faith. As Unitarian Universalists, this chalice sparks in us the passion of our love for one another, the integrity of who we are as human beings, and the bright light of ideas and creativity in our minds. And our choir will sing us into worship.
Guide my feet while I run this race. So most of us probably aren't ready to run the marathon or even a 10K, but each of us is running a race. Maybe your race is taking care of a family member or neighbor with a special need. Maybe your race is knocking on the doors of your neighbors and encouraging them to get out and vote and talking about issues that are important. Maybe your race is preparing a meal for the East End Cooperative Ministry on Sunday nights. We all have a race that we're running, and we come here together to reflect on that, search my heart while I run this race, to gather strength from one another, hold my hand while I run this race. So I invite you to stand. The choir is going to get you started. We'll sing the first verse, and then I ask you to look at the words in your order of service and join us on the subsequent verses. So please stand.
Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain.
Search my heart.
Search my heart while I run this race. Search my heart while I run this race. Search my heart while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain.
Hold my hand.
Hold my hand while I run this race. Hold my hand while I run this race. Hold my hand while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain.
Guide my feet. Let me hear your feet.
Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain.
How about a shout out? Yeehaw! Woo! And now from South Africa, we get this song that is most closely associated with the anti-apartheid movement, but it has come to be a reflection on our march towards social justice on a variety of issues. So please join us. The choir again is going to sing the first verse in Zulu, and then we ask you to sing with us in English.
Siyahambe kukayen kwenkos, siyahambe kukayen kwenkos, siyahambe kukayen kwenkos, siyahambe kukayen kwenkos, siyahamba, hamba, siyahamba, hamba, siyahambe kukayen kwenkos, siyahamba, hamba, siyahamba.
We are marching in the light of God.
We are marching in the light of God. We are marching in the light of God.
Let me hear your feet.
We are marching in the light of God. We are marching in the light of God. We are marching. We are marching. We are marching in the light of God. Marching, we are marching, marching, we are marching in the light of God.
Standing on the side.
We are standing on the side of love. 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 We are standing, standing, we are standing. are standing on the side of love. We are standing, standing, we are standing, standing, we are standing on the side of love.
Singing.
We are singing in the light of God. 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 We are singing, singing, we are singing, singing, we are singing in the light of God. We are singing, singing, we are singing, singing, we are singing in the light of God.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you, Chris, and our wonderful singers. And I do want to note that this, the music that we absolutely love is, and this is a point of awareness for all of us, it is language that is ableist, right? That it assumes everybody can stand, it assumes everybody has hands. It is just a moment of kind of like a self-awareness. And we use it in a metaphoric way, but it's also a language we need to be sensitive to. So great music, but raise our self-awareness about how ableist it is. Yeah? So that being said, Alice is going to lead us. This is the first time we're reading our principles with the 8th.
They're in your order of service, so if you turn to that inside cover, and I'll give you a moment to find that. As Unitarian Universalists, we covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another, and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience, and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part, journeying toward spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions.
This is one of the favorite parts of the work as a minister, as a child dedication. And this is my first one in this community. So I'm particularly excited to welcome, Naomi, would you bring your parental units up, please? And you did not come alone, did you? You brought that whole pew there of really good people. Yeah, of really good people. And Naomi, did you also invite your godparents? Yeah, would you all please come up too? Oh, look at this. Dear friends, from time immemorial, parents have brought their children for religious recognition into the presence of their community, to give thanks for the gift of life and to share their joy with their family and friends. In each child there resides a present delight and a promise of unfolding with every motion. In each parent and community there is a clear, though subtle, responsibility. We celebrate both the unfolding delight and that privilege of responsibility. I invite you all to join me in prayer. Beloved, we are the old yet ever new miracle of incarnation. May the Spirit of life give us the chance to grow within the warmth of your unfailing love, and to souls sensitive to beauty, hearts open to love, and hungry for the imperishable values of life. Do not shrink and wither with us with fear, but quicken with faith the springs of courage within us. Enter with us through the gates of wonder into the wider perspective of tomorrow. Accept us as we grow into fellowship of mutual respect and shared responsibilities, that we in our turn may be worthy fathers, mothers, siblings of the coming generation. May it be so. Amen. Usually by now they've stolen the show, so this is extraordinary. Eliza and David, as parents, you have brought your most sacred and irreplaceable gift, this child, to the ceremony of dedication. Our actions here are but an acknowledgement of the claim that life, and especially this child's life, has already laid upon us, and a dedication to the fulfillment of life's beauty. As your child comes forth in birth and grows in physical independence, so this child shall grow in the freedom of the spirit of maturity and individuality. In bringing this child to this dedication service, you acknowledge that she is a gift of life, entrusted to your care, and you declare your desire and purpose to love and nurture her according to your best endeavor. To this end, will you teach her by precept and example to walk on the ways of truth, beauty, and love? If so, please say we will.
We will.
To all of you, gathered members, congregants, friends, and family, beloved community, friends, and members, we will have a part in this act and a responsibility for all children. As we dedicate this child, will you rededicate yourselves to active concern for all who are helpless, to setting a good example from those whose ways and habits are yet to be established, and to creating here a family of faith in which children may grow into rich and full lives? If so, please say we will.
We will.
Were you guys also dedicated in this church?
Well, we grew up in the church
Yeah.
together, yeah.
Yeah, this is really cool.
Really?
The next generation. Will you, Sarah, Apt, and Claire Galpern, as godparents for this child, trust, befriend, and love her? Will you endeavor always to guide her in the paths of truth and honesty? If so, please say we will.
We will.
And any of the children who are here as well, you play a role as friends of Naomi. Will you promise, any of the kids, if you're listening, promise that when she needs help, will you give her some help? And if she's lost, will you point her in the right direction? Will you be a friend to her in all the ways that's important about friendship? And if so, will you say we will? Okay. You got that, Naomi? You got some friends. Amazing miracle that it is. Each of us is an individual, unique and needed to complete that diversity of humanity. From early times, the name has been a symbol of that individuality. We link ourselves together now in hearing that name. Please, what name have you given this child?
Naomi Marie Hensgriko.
As you receive your name as your own, we give you this flower as a symbol of the potential unfolding of your beautiful life and the water to help you grow, the water that was gathered by this community. Naomi Marie Hensgriko. water to guide you in your heart and body, flowers to remind you of the beauty of life. May your heart and hands and mind always be in unison with your faith. And I'm going to give this to Mom. Yeah. I say, welcome to earth, my child. From the words of C.D. Lewis, we time-worn folk renew ourselves at your enchanted spring, as though humankind's begun again in you. We offer now a reading by Khalil Gibran, and friend Nancy is going to offer that reading.
Good morning, good morning. How wonderful it is to be part of a community, a family of friends, community of family and friends that are here today to welcome and name Naomi Marie Hensgriko. As we dedicate ourselves today to Naomi, I am reminded that I have known Naomi's mother since the day she took her first breath. And I've watched her for more than 30 years, awe and inspire those around her. I remember the day I met Naomi's father, David. I felt as if I had known him just as long, maybe longer. Dave is that kind of person, deeply known and much wiser than his years. In 2018, I was honored to serve as the celebrant at their wedding. That was over 4 years ago. But I remember, and I suspect now, that at that time, Naomi was already nestled secretly into their hearts, just waiting for the opportunity to join them at just the right moment. And she did. Naomi was born on June 13th of this year. And how fortunate Naomi is to have arrived in this community, in this family, with these extraordinary people as her parents. And how fortunate we are to welcome Naomi, to love and support her, and to watch her grow and learn and take her unique place in this world among us. As the prophet has written, your children are not your children. They are the daughters and sons of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows which your children, as living arrows, are set forth. Amen.
I present this certificate of dedication and book, The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. And as Tagore has written, each newborn child brings the message that God is not yet discouraged with humanity. We offer our love and prayer in the spirit of life. Welcome, welcome, Naomi.
Time to wake up, meet the morning. The moons are fading as the day is dawning. Time times are turning, summer's burning, time to head on down the road. Shine on by the moon, keep the little angels shining on with you. Write a brighter tune so we can sing it all the way home. Take it easy, let the road guide you. Make the music last until the night's through. We'll be singing and we'll be traveling with you as you head on down the road. Shine on by the moon, keep the little angels shining on with you. Write a brighter tune so we can sing it all the way home. I'm gonna make this motion that love has been blessing this time with you. I'm holding on to this notion that love everlasting resides in you. We shower this blessing of light on you.
At this time, I'd like to invite any of the children who are with us. You may go to your religious education classes.
Trust the moment while you're moving. All the walking in the road lets the truth in. Just believe it when you see it as you head on down the road. Shine on by the moon, keep the little angels shining on with you. Write a brighter tune so we can sing it all the way home. So we can sing it all the way home. So we can sing it all the way home.
Morning, minus the mask. I'm here, I'm E.B. Emmons, and I'm here on behalf of the Share the Plate team, planning team, because we've come to a new month, and we now have a new Share the Plate recipient for the month of November. We are going to share with a wonderful UU organization called the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, or UUSC. UUSC works in the U.S. and internationally, supporting grassroots movements on behalf of people who are struggling with problems resulting from poverty, ethnic and political conflict, and climate change, leading often to displacement or the need to flee. This is very abstract, and the actual work of the UUSC is very concrete and very passionate and amazing. I was telling my daughter, I don't like what I'm going to say this morning. She said, why not? And I'm like, because it's not dramatic and storytelling-ish enough. So she says, oh, everybody wants to be that girl. But so the history of UUSC is pretty interesting. In 1939, before the U.S. had entered even World War II, Our Reverend Waystill and his wife Martha Sharp from Wellesley, Mass. Traveled at the behest of the American Unitarian Association at that time to Czechoslovakia when people were very worried about what was happening in Europe, but the US was not in the war yet. And they evidently were in Prague when the Nazis marched into Prague. They went in February and they stayed there and partnered with organizations that were able to help people who were in danger of persecution, whether they were Jews or Unitarians or what, to escape from Europe. They remained for 6 months, but I think they had to come back suddenly because they were being threatened and their files were, there was a fire in their office or something. So anyway, so this was the start of UUSC, and for the past 80 years, UUSC has grown to reach its reach and its embrace of justice work. So it now works in 20 countries around the world. Now, how does the UUSC decide which 20 countries to work in, as troubled as the world is and as huge an array of problems as there is that we know about? Well, UUSC has an office of about 35 staff members in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and a CEO who is a wonderful Unitarian Universalist minister called Mary Catherine Morn. These folks are lawyers, organizers, activists, researchers, policy specialists who develop and nurture relationships with leaders in troubled communities. Sometimes they find out about communities that are in trouble because of the news, because there's a natural disaster like an earthquake or a tsunami. And the crucial thing is developing relationships in those places and finding out what local leaders are interested in. So their work is to help local leaders to lift up the issues that are troubling them and to cope with the various disasters and injustices, both natural and human caused. Partnering with marginalized communities to help them claim their power to improve their lives is the common theme. Many times UUSC first enters a community, as I just said, during a natural disaster. So the earthquake in Haiti in 2010, the ethnic conflict in Burma or Myanmar has been a focus of work. Also, UUSC has worked with those who, a lot with El Salvador, taking Congress people to El Salvador during the 70s to see what was happening there and what the US's role was in all the troubles there. Also work with people who are in trouble in Central America and need to flee. So, in sum, there's way too much to say, but I will tell you, UUSC has a wonderful website which is full of videos and interviews and photographs and arguments about political issues and social justice issues and educate. It's just a wonderful place to learn in a very friendly way about what they're doing. Yesterday I learned, this morning I went on the website and I learned that yesterday was World Tsunami Awareness Day, and then a whole bunch of data about how many tsunamis there have been in the Pacific Islands over the past 100 years and how many people are vulnerable to displacement or even death, being flooded by them. So I think we can be proud and hopeful based on UUSC's work. And please speak to me if you want to hear or talk about more of the issues. And please check out the website. And thank you for your attention.
For all our donations, our religious community is made up of volunteers and staff creating and hosting a variety of programming. We rely on your financial support. In addition to the collection plate, you can donate by texting GIVE to 412-435-1050 and following the directions. Please see your order of service for additional options. We will now receive the offertory.
Cuando el pobre nada tiene, ya reparte. Cuando alguien pasa así, Varios mismo en nuestro mismo caminar. Varios mismo en nuestro mismo caminar.
I invite you each to note the many sorrows that you bear in your hearts, the grief unspoken, the sadness that is with you throughout your day. I invite you also to remember the joys, the celebrations, the love, those moments of elation when you're reminded about the sacredness of life. None of us walk on this path alone. Whether spoken or silent, we journeyed together. I do offer to hold in our prayers and celebrations that Laura Winokur and Michael Morell are sharing a great joy, that their daughter Molly Morell gave birth to a little girl, Una Winokur Wilson, on August 17th last summer. And Molly grew up at First Unitarian and worked in our religious education program several years ago. Another life is unfolding in our world. I invite Kathy and Chris to come forward for our annual All Souls Day of Remembrance, as last week was both All Souls and All Saints as well.
Hello, I am Chris Baregi, a member of the Pastoral Care Team. And in this service, we are sanctifying both the beginning of life and the end of life, the circle of life, and all that's in between. Today, in observance of All Souls Day, which was November 2nd, we remember and honor First Unitarian Church of Pittsburgh members and family and friends of members who died since All Souls Day in 2021. As I read each name, Pastoral Care Team Co-Chair Kathy Miller will place a flower in the vase on the chalice table to acknowledge each soul's beauty and uniqueness of spirit. Please feel free to come up after the service to take the flower that represents your loved one. May our sacred honoring of these loved ones comfort and warm our hearts, and may our memory of them continue to animate the influence of their essence in our lives and in our world. Among church members who died since All Souls Day 2021 are our beloved Phyllis Gensler, wife of Jack Phillips, on November 18th, 2021. Our dear William Meyerberg, a church member, on December 19th, 2021. and our treasured Mary Costalos on June 23rd, 2022. Among family and friends of church members are Clyde L. Johnson, cousin-in-law of Jim Cunningham, on February 21st, 2021. Holly Newman, cousin of Julie Downs, June 12th, 2021. James Herndon, father of Reverend David Herndon, November 4th, 2021. Joseph Drosbosky, brother of Mary Alice Drosbosky, November 26, 2021. Josephine Dean, mother of Jim Edwards, November 30th, 2021. Martha Haberman, mother of Irena Haberman, December 10th, 2021. Reza Begi, son of Judy Begi, December 27th, 2021. Ronald W. Lockwood, friend of Jim Cunningham, December 31st, 2021. Linda Wortman, aunt of Julie Downs, January 2nd, 2022. Marjorie Smith, sister of Jim Wrights, January 17th, 2022. John Thomas Paredes, son of John Paredes, January 21st, 2022. Susie Johnson, friend of Alice Bright and Bob Sullivan, February 5th, 2022. Reverend Jean Pupke, colleague of Reverend Kate Walker, February 8th, 2022. Thomas E. Morton, ex-husband of Sally Morton, February 25th, 2022. Hajia Masaladan, mother of Ali Masaladan, March 9th, 2022. Anna Flutsaku Kornberg, mother of Iulia Kornberg, May 13, 2022. Warren K. Porter, father of Maureen Porter, June 26, 2022. Eric Gear, brother of Audrey Masaladan, July 13, 2022. Theodore A. Haig, brother of Kathy Fine, July 14, 2022. John A. Meinert, father of Lynn Franks Meinert, July 30th, 2022. Carol Lewis Miller, sister-in-law of Sandy Woolley, August 6, 2022. Dennis R. Sullivan, cousin of Bob Sullivan, August 8, 2022. Jim Drotliff, cousin of Bob Sullivan, September 14, 2022. And Karen Carey Hall, mother of Eliza Hall, October 3rd, 2022. If there is another loved one who should be included in this remembrance whose name we have not received, I invite you to speak it now, silently or aloud, right where you are. Let us pause for a moment of silence to lift these loved ones up with gratitude for their lives lived among us, with grief because we miss them, and with hope for the continuance of their essence, memory, and influence in our world. Blessed are you, compassionate source of our living and our dying, the wellspring of our days, in whose shelter the sinews of our bodies and the shape of our souls come to be. In the boundary of whose love we learn to dream and know and love what is good and seek it. And in the limits set for us, small and great, both easy and harsh, are invited to choose life and love it. Blessed be the goodness we find and the difficulties that grow us. Blessed be the length of our days and the shortness of them, calling us to cherish each hour and create each day with deeds of loving kindness. Blessed be the greater life of which we are a part, the surging tides of air and water that fuel this green planet's life, the sweep of humankind through the ages upon whose shoulders we stand, the power of those who have waded through the vale of tears and found it full of living water. Blessed be the mystery of eternity in which our little lives are remembered and held deep in your loving heart. Amen, and blessed be.
I invite you to stay seated as we sing in response number 95, There is More Love.
All the words you need are in your bulletin. More love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more peace. There is more peace somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace somewhere. There is more hope. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope somewhere. There is more joy. There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere.
William Howard Taft, the 27th U.S. president, sat one of these front pews on May 30th of 1909. He was a lifelong Unitarian, regularly attending All Souls Unitarian Church in Washington, D.C. He was in town for the first Pirates game at the new Forbes Field. Taft loved baseball. In fact, on April 14th of 1910, he attended opening day game in Washington against the Philadelphia Athletics. And after he threw out the first pitch, he went and sat in a box near the field. But in the middle of the 7th inning, he stood up to stretch. And the crowd, thinking that the president was leaving, rose as well out of respect. You might say that a Unitarian invented the 7th inning stretch. It might be a stretch. But it is not a stretch to recognize that the impact of laws and policies and beliefs of political leaders such as President Taft has had upon the lives of individuals from death to life. Taft did not end his impact when he left the White House. As you may know, he went on to serve in another very important, quote-unquote, political position. From 1921 to 1930, Taft achieved his life dream when he was appointed as Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court. And there he led a crucial Supreme Court decision in 1927 called Buck versus Bell. And I'm going to pause for a moment with a trigger warning. There is some rough language coming. Taft and another Unitarian Supreme Court Justice, Oliver Wendell Holmes, both voted with the majority in support of the forced sterilization of a young black girl because she was considered, quote, shiftless, ignorant, and worthless, end quote. This is a direct result of deeply embedded culturalization of racism, and in this particular case, eugenics. Taft, of course, was a Republican, conservative, so much so that to the dismay of Theodore Roosevelt, he withdrew his support for Taft in the re-election and split the Republican Party. Yet Taft, as a Unitarian, continued to hold his religious values as a Unitarian despite these ongoing tensions between his faith and his political party. I'm fascinated by this intersection between religion and politics, two massive social structures designed to help support humanity from birth to death, and even beyond if you count the laws about cemeteries. Politics, we know, is about the engagement in the art and in the science of governance, or more accurately, influencing government policy, winning and holding control over government office. While religion is about beliefs, attitudes, practices. Religion is about ensuring life is held sacred, valued, and contained within social expectations of morals and ethics. But those morals and ethics are then often held within the confinement of laws enacted by political figures. Thus, a close working relationship between politicians and religion is inevitable. Now, we may have the separation of church and state thanks to the Unitarian-leaning Thomas Jefferson. However, in no way should the two be considered inseparable. We are married one way or another. Now, that does not mean that I or this church can endorse a candidate. That's actually enforced because of our nonprofit religious status, but does not mean that we can't take political positions on issues that impact all of us. But according to Religion and Politics, which is an institution that's part of the Washington University in St. Louis, which has a hefty list of important names on their advisory board, they state that for better or for worse, religion and politics converge, clash, and shape public life. But right now, politics are not just shaping public life, they are shaping each other in alarming ways. engaging in a marital dance that may end up with a fast and furious tumble on our democratic institutional floor. I've heard too many of my clergy friends, including Unitarian Universalists, frustrated from church members who don't want politics in the pulpit. Some members have been resorting to pushing the clergy out if too many political sermons are presented. And this is a particularly hot topic with evangelicals, but for the opposite reason. They're facing deep division within their millions. According to The Atlantic, in the June 22 issue, Tim Alberta, who interviewed 2 evangelical pastors, he writes, "If this is the story of 2 churches, it is also the tale of churches everywhere. It's the story of millions of American Christians who, after a lifetime spent considering their political affiliations in the context of their faith, are now considering their faith affiliations in the context of their politics." End quote. They've been following our Christian evangelicals in particular, but also the mainstream. They've been following Christian scriptures. They've been hearing Paul's admonition to the people of Corinth to focus on the unseen side of life, that is heaven. The evangelicals in particular considered firm separation of church and state because politics was deemed as sinful, a part of the flesh. But by the 1980s, so much turmoil was happening in our country that clergy such as James Dobson was strongly advocating for collective power amongst the evangelicals, but it was in order to build the kingdom of God here and now. They labored to reclaim the lost battle of the 20th century over conservative values of sex and sexuality, of drugs, abortion, pornography, standards in the media and education, prayer in public schools, along with liberal action for gay rights and interracial marriages. That fight for the kingdom has become very, very real. Here in the 21st century, those kingdom values are about vaccines, masks, immigrants, Q anonymous theories, voting rights, stolen election, fights over democracy, Christian nationalism, guns, guns, and more guns. Yet for many of these evangelical pastors, the congregation is running faster than they can keep up or even want to run. The people are demanding that pastors bring the politics into the pulpit and that their clergy then claim a side, the right side, or they'll be thrown outside. If the people don't hear what they want, then the members simply leave, going further right to more conservative, charismatic, and fundamentalist churches where clergy are happily riding the Trump train. And this apex of power in the movement, when 81% of white evangelicals voted for Trump, but more importantly, they were voting against Hillary Clinton. Russell Moore of Christianity Today states that 100% of Christian churches are struggling with contemporary social and political issues. Political fanaticism is rampant and tearing apart our beloved siblings in the Christian churches. And it's not just the evangelicals, the main lines. Southern Baptist Convention, largest denomination in our country, they're bleeding members over fights over race relations, women serving in leadership and accountability for sexual misconduct, among other issues. For those of us who have had a long working relationship with United Methodists, the second largest denomination, they are on the verge of splitting over sociological and theological issues and political. Our Episcopalian siblings have already split. Our Jewish siblings are finding themselves experiencing arguments disrupting their Sabbath and confounding their rabbis. And the Hindus are splitting over religious nationalism as well, fed by what's going on in their country of India. What's crucial to understand about these earthquakes happening in our religious frontier is that American religion impacts all of society because the churches have served as a fundamental stabilizing force throughout our history. Religious leaders are traditionally brought in to calm disruption, pull the public back from the political divisions when they become too raw and deep. Now American religion, with its hyped up prophetic type clergy, there was an article in Washington Post this morning about one, they're part of a larger growing political and social divisiveness. Indeed, some of them are the primary contributors to the rise of religious and Christian nationalism. In many houses of worship that traditionally called to serve and worship the Prince of Peace, now they are inviting civil war based on divine justice. This is fearful, my friends, fearful. And the misinformation that is steadily contributing to our anxiety is very real. For those clergy who are trying to calm the people, the game is not fair. We have you for, at best, 60 minutes on a Sunday. At best. The rest of the week, you are running around with podcasts and Twitter and television news. And for those who like Fox in particular, they can even sensationalize a picnic. And they have a massive chunk of the viewership. And they are constantly pushing in a world of addictive fear-mongering. So here's my dilemma, my beloved. It's a very real dilemma, a line that I walk every day. I don't want to alarm you. I really don't want to increase your fear because that puts us in a bind. If we let fear-mongering start to happen in our own pews and in our own hearts, we start to become part of the panic that is so contagious. That panic that is happening starts to make us much more dualistic in our world view. We start to see false choices, black and white, and our brains start to solve things well. We fill in the gaps with simplistic conspiracy theories. We start looking for victims and evil doers that can be thrown out and solve our anxiety. This is all being fed by hyped up, misleading information. I don't want to become part of that, but yet I need us all to pay attention. It's a delicate balance. Fear is a powerful tool that can motivate us to engage in change. We're hearing it from President Biden, from Obama yesterday here at our own Schenley Plaza. We need to recognize how fear can be a motivation toward health and wholeness, and it can also be used as a tool against us by the extreme right. Because when we're more fearful, we're more malleable and we're more susceptible to extreme measures of restricting our civil rights. I use as an example is just recently, Virginia's recent reversal of policies that were put in place to protect trans and non-binary students because of fear factor. Oh my God, you might see them in the bathroom. To help manage this fear and the heightened stress in the church, some major denominations are actually attempting to rein in the hype by securing their pulpits with political restrictions. They're telling the pastors, no preaching on elections and current events. What's left? It's really hard to address daily life issues and morality and ethics and all of our religious practices if we can't talk about current events and what's burning in our hearts. It's nearly impossible. But how do I do that without increasing the fear? How do I motivate people to get out the vote? Fortunately, you guys are really well motivated. But imagine this view. It's actually not that outrageous a view of restricting the pulpit. Back in 1917, when after the U.S. entered World War I, if former President Taft was sitting in the front pew, I would not be allowed to object to the war. Not because he was sitting there, but because after he served as president, he went on to serve as vice president of the American Unitarian Association, as well as president of the General Conference of Unitarians and other Christian churches. And under his leadership, he created a movement of Unitarian support for the war. And then he withheld any funding for churches that had pastors who would in any way speak out against the war. Many clergy lost their pulpits. Unitarians for many years lost John Haynes Holmes, the famous Unitarian and pacifist. The cost was huge. The American Unitarian Association, though I will add, issued a statement in 1936 recanting its denial of aid to congregants with ministers who didn't support the war. In World War II and subsequent war, the Unitarians have supported conscientious objectors and those who've spoken out against government policy. In fact, the ability and capacity to have freedom of the pulpit, to speak openly, has deep roots within Unitarians as well as the Universalists. Taft missed this. We took the wrong turn for a few years. This freedom of speech and the pulpit continues to be a foundational value. And in fact, those roots go back to the 17th century, thanks to, believe it or not, Oliver Cromwell. Yeah. I thought that was interesting. He actually spoke about in favor of religious freedom on this date, November 6th, during the 17th century. Today, if the president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, Susan Frederick Gray, or if President Biden, for that matter, happened to be sitting here in the front pew, I think both would be cheering us all on, including myself from the pulpit, in getting out the vote and being actively engaged in organizations such as the Democratic Party and the League of Women Voters. We're a different people. We're a different people. And as a Unitarian Universalist minister, I am holding true to over 400 years of freedom and liberty. I will always advocate and call for the protection of those freedoms, even as they are used in abusive ways. Even the greatest of freedoms need semblance of balance, civility, kindness, compassion, the recognition and embracing of complexity, and accountability. And that's what we're missing right now. Religion and government are in a bitter and dangerous contest for our civil rights, and we need to speak out more about accountability. We've reached a point in our U.S. history, while other countries are also experiencing similar rise in nationalism, that requires religious conservatives and progressives to come together to collaborate, to work in partnership in order to bring that calming voice back to our country, to stop the fear-mongering, to offer balance, civility, kindness, recognition of complexity, and accountability when those freedoms are used in abusive ways. My friends, the theme of the month for November I offer to you is courage. Courage. Accountability takes courage. Courage is where I turn. I love the words of Maya Angelou, who wrote, "Courage is the most important of all the virtues, because without courage, you can't practice any other virtue consistently." So I offer courage right now. I invite your courage in part because I don't have any easy platitudes to offer you today. I really don't. And I can't offer you some easy charge that you can just practice on your way out through your life this week. I think the world's religions, including our own as Unitarian Universalists, are caught up in a much larger shift in public life. I've been looking at the emerging work around what's known as collective trauma, and I'm seeing very deep and old roots of unresolved traumatic pain breaking our hearts, bodies, and our souls again and again. We are hurting. These are ancient hurts and pains from too many wars, too many holocausts, too many ancient roots of colonialism and racism and sexism and ableism and all the forms that we engage in oppression of one another. And perhaps it wouldn't hurt if we all at some point stood as we were able for a seventh inning stretch. As we remember that this church will always, the churches should be about healing the sin-sick soul, as the hymn says, and the deep rifts of how we have hurt one another. As Unitarian Universalists, we are always on the side of love and the essential work of justice and liberation for all, that we return to our 8 principles, reminding us of that which is most important. I offer the words of Unitarian Universalist Reverend Rosemary Bray McNatt. We do the best work when we remember what church is and what it is not. Church is not a place to hide. It is not the place to get away from the world. It is not a place where we get to pretend that the lives we live in our particular situations are not terribly complex, often confusing, and sometimes depressing. Church is the place where we stand with one another, look the world in the eye, attempt to see clearly, and gather strength, what we see, with courage, and yes, even with joy. So today, my beloved, if I give you any charge out of all this, it is to reinforce your courage, strengthen your courage, find sources for your courage. We're in a difficult dance, my beloved, and we need to heal as we hold each other accountable. May it be a blessing for us all. Amen.
Right into the chalice extinguishing at this point.
The words are found in your heart as well as in the program. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Go forth into this world, my beloved. Go forth with courage in your steps, in your hands, in your hearts, in your words. Sing of courage. Go forth, but more than anything, return again with your love. Blessed be.
And I invite you now to stand as we sing for our lives.
Gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
Land of many colors.
We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
We are young and old together.
We are young and old together.
Go in peace.